Continuing our reading in The World in Thorin by Damon Knight. Today is Chapter 3, Section 4. While Thorin stood hesitating, one of the closed pods stirred, split, began to open. A glint of pink showed within. A plump woman emerged, rosy-faced, with dreamy eyes. She was like someone just awakened from a long, sweet sleep. With languorous movements, she stepped out, picked up her petal garments, discarded on the grass, slowly put them on. A faint smile curved her lips. She wandered away from the greensward. Behind her, the pod swayed empty. Not liking the look of this, Thorin backed away. The woman caught at his arms, touched the wounds on his face and shoulder, pointed again to the empty pod. It was as if they were trying to say that the pod would heal him. Thorin tried to explain with gestures that he had medicine of his own, but they were slow to understand, and at length he had to get a pinch of sky stuff out of his wallet and point repeatedly to it, then to his wounds. This set off a fury of excited conversation, with much waving of arms and movement back and forth. The people brought forward one of the oldsters, who squinted wisely at Thorin, stroked his scraggly beard, and piped a few words of gibberish. At this, the whole flock of them set off again, down the slope this time, drawing Thorin along. They led him into a circle of people gathered around a heap of fruits on the grass. Some of the people got up to make room, while others sat down, and when the confusion ended, Thorin found himself seated with a plump woman on either side. A child scrambled into the circle, plucked a pale greenish ovoid from the heap, and handed it to one of the women, who offered it to Thorin. He took it dubiously. It was cool in his hands and had a strange fragrance, but he was hungry and bit into it boldly. It was soft and pungent, the flavor sweet and acid at the same time. The cool juice ran down his chin. The exposed meat was a startling emerald green. Thorin instinctively spat out what was in his mouth. He was thinking better of it and about to take a second bite when one of the women took the fruit away from him gently and offered him another sort. This was flattish and pale brown, with a texture almost like bread. Inside was something firmer. Thorin bit through the soft outer layer into a salty, fibrous substance. It was a deep pink in color and tasted almost like cooked flesh of an unfamiliar sort, yet the thing was a fruit, for it had a stem and the remnants of a husk. The people watched him eat with broad smiles and cries of encouragement. As he was finishing the bread and meat thing, a group of children ran into the circle with curled leaves in their hands. In the leaves was dark sky stuff which must have been gathered in the forest. One of the oldsters came forward, inspected the contents of the leaves with great gravity and care, then called for a fruit which was given to him. It was a smallish golden yellow one. He squeezed it in his hand until the clear juice ran into the sky stuff. He stirred and molded the drenched moss with his nubby fingers. Then, apparently satisfied, picked up a mass of the sodden stuff, leaned forward and began to plaster it carefully over the wound in Thorin's cheek. After an instinctive start, Thorin sat still and let him do it. The sticky juice made the sky stuff cling. It felt agreeably cool on the fevered lips of the wound. When he was done, the old man called for a leaf, which he smeared with sap from a green stalk. Then, carefully pinching the lips of the wound together, he spread the leaf over the sky stuff and wound and pressed it down firmly. When he had done the same for Thorin's other wounds, he examined the withered leg and wagged his chin sadly. Then he squatted back on his heels and made a sweeping motion over his head 3 times, staring intently into Thorin's eyes. Thorin, although he had no idea what was meant, made signs of agreement and gratitude, and the old man went back to the other side of the circle. Thinking to repay them for their kindness, Thorin opened his wallet and brought out one of his few treasures, pebbles of various colors, part of the weasel skull, and a bit of crystal. This last he presented to the old man, while the others crowded around twittering with excitement. Then he handed out the rest at random, including a strip of cloth that had been used as a garment of his own until he outgrew it. afterward a rag used by Goriat and his sons to polish the bones of their harness. Thorin had saved a piece because it had bright figures of birds and people woven into it. The people took these gifts with every evidence of pleasure. Some of the women and children offered Thorin more fruits, each one of a different sort, and he continued to eat with good appetite. It was clear that he had somehow got into the highlands, though he had no idea how he had done it. It was a puzzle. For the trees, though taller than any he had ever seen, were no more than 20 or 30 ells in height, yet they touched the sky, and even here, at the bottom of the slope, the sky seemed close overhead. But these people in their dress and appearance were nothing at all like the Highlanders Goriat and his sons spoke about. Nor had Thorin ever seen them mention or heard them mention any place of such warmth and brilliance. The people were all friendly, but not one could understand him when he spoke, or utter any but their own outlandish notions and noises. He questioned one after another, saying, "Hovenskar? Snorri's pipe? The lowlands?" and making gestures, but all he got in return was a new outburst of twittering. The more he observed them, the more puzzled and uneasy he grew. There were at least 5 sorts: the plump, wobbly women, the twigmen, the oldsters, the children of all sizes, and another sort of men whom he had taken for children at first because of their small stature, but they were wide-shouldered and well-thewed, and Thorin saw them here and there clipping and kissing the women. Most of the women, the oldsters, and some of the little men wore petal garments, but the others were as naked as Thorin himself, now that he had laid aside his sweaty leather shirt and breeks. They had no weapons of any kind, nor indeed anything made with hands. They must be persons of quality, if one were to judge by their soft hands and feet and their merry expressions, yet they were no servants or bond slaves among them, so far as Thorin could see. They came and went as aimless as children. They seemed as curious about Thorin as he about them, and there were always some few around him, fingering his skin and hair, but they all lost interest quickly and went off to join some game or wandered into the trees. And that is the end of section 4.